Hi, this is Isabelle Litzler, Pleiad HC. So today we're going to have the webinar on LinkedIn, your job search partner. So this webinar is mostly for job seekers. I want to make that clear. I will do another webinar next month, which is more about the web and how to boost visibility. And this is for anyone who wants to market themselves a little bit more online in general. So what I want to do is basically, I have an agenda I want to follow today. I will share with you the PowerPoint because I think for LinkedIn, it's a bit technical. So I wanted you to have the visibility on the tool and how it works. And then I will move back to a face-to-face to give you the strategy on LinkedIn. So with no further ado, let's move to the PowerPoint. So this is basically the PowerPoint. So the agenda I will cover today is creating an exciting profile, start engaging with companies and individuals, develop a strategy, and move forward. So firstly, I want to talk about the questions and answers. In between each section, I will give some time for you to ask some questions. So I will go back to the screen. If you have any issues for whatever reason, just post your question on Meetup and I will be happy to answer it afterwards. So just to make sure, is everyone able to see the screen share? I'm looking if there's any questions on the right-hand side. No questions, so that means you're able to see it. This is great. Okay, so LinkedIn, why I wanted to do a webinar specifically on LinkedIn, because I think as a job seeker, this is really the best tool for you. This is the #1 social media that you can use for your career advancements and professional growth. Why? Because I think it's really geared for that, the way it's positioned, the way the profile is built. It's really meant for job seekers as opposed to other social media like Facebook or Instagram or all the other ones. So for me, really developing some skills on LinkedIn is very important if you're looking for a job. You can develop your profile, you can show your skills, you can engage anywhere. I just think it's really well done. But what I want to put in there, it's a little caveat, is that LinkedIn is a tool and does not replace human contact. This is important because sometimes when I talk to people, I get the impression that they say, okay, I have a profile on LinkedIn and connect with a few people and things should start happening. It's the same thing as in real life. You get what you invest. So it does not replace human relationships. People that are on your LinkedIn are usually people that you also connect with in real life. So I just want to make that clear, and I think it's an important part of understanding how to use social media in addition to the connections you have in real life and not as a replacement. This is important. So what I will do for the purpose of this webinar is to use my profile as the example, because I think if I just put bullet points, it will still not be very clear for you. So I wanted to give you an example, and then you can basically use that as a trademark for your profile that you're going to create. So starting with creating a profile, I want to start with the photo because I think that's also very important for your branding. I've seen a lot of improvement in terms of the quality of photos on LinkedIn. Used to be people would put themselves there with their cats and dogs and families. Now I see more people investing in having nice photos for everybody. So please invest in a photo shoot. You can find one quite reasonably priced now where the photographer will do something that really represents you well with your character and your just the way you want to show yourself. This already gives a positive image about you. The next thing that's quite important on LinkedIn, and I spend a lot of time when I work one-to-one with job seekers, is the header. So you see the yellow here arrow is showing the header. So I've used 3 words that represent me. You need to find what words represent you. That said, you don't have to do words. You can do a phrase. You can do maybe your last job. If you're looking for always the same positions, let's say you're a marketing specialist, maybe you have marketing specialist there. or you can say, I'm looking for a job in marketing, even though I don't usually suggest to say you're looking for, but maybe more open for opportunities or something like that. But keywords will basically be better in terms of positioning, because that's what recruiters will type in when they're looking for profiles. So in terms of algorithm, you have a better chance to be pulled as a profile when you have keywords. So how do you find keywords? Well, there's different ways to go about it. The first one is to use Wordle.net. It's something I use with job seekers when you actually put in your resume, and it will pull all the keywords for you. They should come as big keywords that you can use for your header. If that's not really representing you for whatever reason, maybe you haven't worked so much on your resume and you have keywords that don't really represent what you want to do now, that's okay. You can still maybe think about your experience and what you've done and see what better keywords represent you now. So this part for me is a part where I invest a lot of time. I've done workshops where we spend maybe half the workshop with job seekers, where we look at their experiences, what they're trying to do, and we go back and forth. And even for myself, it took me a long time to get to what you see now. So it's not an easy thing. Just to let you know, it's okay if you spend a lot of time on it. The other two more technical things, but I think are important, the name that appears on LinkedIn is usually not your first and last name. I made it look that way for better positioning on Google, but typically if you look at yours now, if you have a profile already created, you will probably have something a bit funky. So what I would advise is to go on there and change it to your first name and last name. You can edit this piece right here by just clicking on it. Same thing with the contact info. This is important because sometimes I get emails from people that contact me on LinkedIn, so I want to make sure I get it now. It could happen that you open your LinkedIn profile 5-6 years ago and you've changed emails, or maybe it's an email that you don't no longer use. So it will delay the time that you get the information that you received an email on LinkedIn. So make sure that you go also on there and you have your most recent email and phone number. This is also important because when recruiters are going to look at your profile, you want to make sure that they have the right information. So these two pieces I would edit on the profile just to make sure you're up to date. The next portion on LinkedIn is about your posts that you have if you wrote some information. So if you published a post, they will automatically be set up under your profile. So that also brings more visibility, more activity around yourself. So I regularly write blog posts on career. This is what you see here. So if you're a specialist, let's say in marketing or finance or wherever, writing a blog is a good idea, and writing in LinkedIn. So you don't have to open a website and publish a blog. LinkedIn gives you the option to actually write an article, publish it, and post it under your profile. So this is quite a nice feature if you're looking for work and you want to show your expertise. But I'll talk more about that in a minute. The next pieces on your profile are summary and experience. On the summary and experience, this is where the debate opens up with job seekers. What do I put, how, and it can be something that's quite debatable for a long time. My advice is to always keep it short and simple. Recruiters don't have a lot of time to read all your information. So it's important to be very clear about what you're looking for. This is where sometimes in the summary, when I see people talking about their past, I have a bit of an issue, because what you want to do is be of interest to your future company. So to tell them that you've worked 10 years in an industry that may not even be relevant to them is not going to be attractive. However, if you have worked on what I call in my jargon, the positioning, which is really your current project, what you're trying to do and trying to pursue at this stage in your career, this part should be a lot easier for you. But that means that you've actually worked on your profile and you understand what you're trying to get in terms of jobs. So talking about what you've done, how great you are, how qualified you are in something that may not even be so close to the organization you're targeting is not going to be so efficient. So I usually split it in 3 different sections. It's what you're doing now. So as for me, I help managers, solopreneurs, and freelancers grow their career potential and develop their business. That's what I do now. I give a background on my bio for people who are interested in knowing where I come from. For young graduates, you won't have a bio necessarily, but you can talk about your internships that you've done, what they brought for you in terms of skills. But I would say if you have 10+ years of experience, typically a bio is appropriate, and then you can summarize really who you are and what you've done. And I still added contact details, even though it's actually geared into the LinkedIn profile, because I thought, if people don't click in the right places, I basically want to be in the shoes of the person looking for the information and want to make it easy for them to find. So when people go on my profile, on the summary, they get my contact details and they can easily send me an email or call me or whatever. So I would do the same thing if I were a job seeker. Put all your contact details out there for the recruiters so that they don't have to go and search for it. I think it's a bit of a weakness in LinkedIn, is that for me, it's hard when I look at profile to find the contact details. And of course, I think the idea is to stay on LinkedIn and connect via LinkedIn email, but I find that the tool is a bit slow, and and especially if you're a job seeker, you do want people to contact you. You don't want to make yourself hard to get, as it would be the case maybe for a CEO of a company or head of a department. So definitely when you want to be reachable, you want to make sure people can reach you, basically. It's very simple. In terms of experience, so this is also where I get a lot of debate as to what you put under experiences. Again, the idea is that it should be relevant to who you're targeting. So if you've done a lot of work in an industry and you're changing jobs or changing careers, you have to think about that and how you brand yourself. What's going to be what's going to make the most sense. For example, sometimes I see CEO of companies that only have one line and it's just the company they're leading and they're CEO of it. They haven't put all their experiences because they realize it's not going to be of importance. They just want to be known as this one person right now. So think about who your target is, what kind of companies you're trying to attract, and then you can choose how to position your different experiences. I also repeat that LinkedIn is not another resume, so you don't have to have all your experiences there. Line by line, you can choose which ones you want to push forward. But you can also decide, maybe I put a one-liner to show that I work there. So it really depends on, if you're going, for example, from being an employee to being a solopreneur, or you're starting your own freelance business, maybe you don't necessarily have to have all the history since when you started working. So it really depends on what's important, the consistency of your career. For example, in my situation, I've only worked in HR, so it's consistent and there's a flow there. But if you worked in multiple industries, in multiple jobs, it can become more of a ad hoc kind of section than anything else and confuse the recruiter. So you have to think about consistency. So that's for the experience, but of course, it's a very debatable type of section in LinkedIn. Now, the next thing I get from job seekers is usually about the free or premium type of situation. Nowadays, it seems like most websites are working in this kind of strategy. It's called a freemium with the jargon. So it's basically you have some part for free and then you have a part that's that you have to pay for, which is fair. People get some things, but they have also sometimes to pay. So I don't want to put forward a very firm opinion on it. I think on free, you can already get a lot of stuff. I have a free account. I've always used a free account. I'm able to connect with my network, to publish information, to share information. I don't necessarily haven't used the email type of function so much. That's just the way I work. I work mostly with people I know and work through there. But if you really want to have a little bit more email possibilities and you want to also get an idea on how you are featured as an applicant, who's going to see your profile a bit more, that could be useful to see, to be able to connect with recruiters or companies, maybe you can try it. And as you see, there's a free month trial, basically, that's not engaging you. So I would say maybe that's something, once you're really comfortable with the tool, you can do the basics. That's something you can always connect for in the future. The other part I think is interesting in the profile is to understand a little bit more about account settings. If you want to to have the control of your profile and understand what's going on, you need to be able to use this part very well. So it's on the right-hand side here, account settings. It used to be that most of the things you would be able to do on LinkedIn were under privacy and settings. And nowadays they've changed it a little bit. So under privacy and settings, you can edit your emails and your phone numbers or add some information. but most of the stuff now is you can do via your profile directly. So you don't have to go into the account and settings, which was a bit complicated for people. I remember running workshops where people were quite confused on that. So I think they're trying to make it more user-friendly in terms of going on the profile and be able to do everything there. But still, the account settings, this is what you would do when you try to upgrade your profile. If you want to post a job, that's if you're a company, advertising, same thing, etc., etc. So just know that it's there, and if you want to edit your settings. So I want to talk now about a few things that are important in your profile that you would be interested in as a job seeker to do. So once you have your photo and your header, your different sections are all lined up, then what you want to do is actually start really using your profile. And the first thing is really recommendations. That's what's going to give some breath to your profile. So if you have people that you know in your company right now, if you're working, this is when you could ask them for recommendations. If you've left the company and you don't have anything in your profile right now, you could go and ask these people to do a recommendation. And the way LinkedIn did it is really doing it again on the profile directly. You can go under your experiences and you will see ask to be recommended. So you would just click on the button and it gives you the whole path that you have to complete. An email is sent automatically to the individual, and then they would send you a text that you have to agree on. And if you agree on it, you just publish it. If you don't, it gets edited by the person, etc. So they made it an all online process where you work with the person recommending you and who it appears on your profile. So that's a nice way to get recommendations. So the question also that people ask me is, how many do you need? Again, it's not a question of numbers, it's more about quality. So the idea is not to go to everybody and ask for recommendations. Again, who wants to read a profile where there's too much information? And then I think too many recommendations could also be suspicious. Why is this person having so many recommendations, you know? So I think it's the same thing as when you give references, you know, 4 or 5 is good. It depends also how many jobs you've had. You know, if it's a job you had 10 years ago, probably the people don't work there. Maybe you're not in contact anymore. Maybe they're not on LinkedIn. It's going to be hard. So the idea is not to make it this huge, hard project that you have to run after people to get recommendations. The idea is that you have recommendations you're comfortable with, people that have really made an impact in your career and can say some positive things about you because they know how you work. And publish them. So if you go on my profile on LinkedIn, you will see I don't have huge amounts of recommendations under my different jobs. I don't pursue recommendations for that manner. And I think it has worked well for me in terms of amount of recommendations. So again, I don't think people should really stress about getting so many. The other button that will help you on LinkedIn is the notify your network. This is something that could be useful if you want to keep your search confidential. So if you're looking, obviously you're going to be more active on LinkedIn, you're going to start publishing more. That could raise some kind of questions in your department if you have people that are your colleagues on LinkedIn. So I typically have the button set on no on mine because I don't want people to see exactly all the different edits I make. Yeah, I think for me, I think no works well. I just don't see any reasons why there's a benefit for people to see what you're editing in your profile. If anything else, it's going to crowd their inbox or their updates. So I would only put it to no, and then people can see when you're changing titles. Anyway, it will be published. So if you were to be promoted or to get a new job, people can see that on LinkedIn that you have a new job. That's automatically published anyways. But for the small edits, like changing maybe a few words here and there, or I don't think it's necessary that people can see all that, and especially if you're looking and you want to keep it on a low profile. So that's, I think, a nice button to know that it's there on the right-hand side of your LinkedIn profile. And the ask to be recommended is also something that you will use. The other thing to add some breadth or some depth to your profile is to add skills. So a skills endorsement is something also that people get very hyped about, just like the recommendations. again, LinkedIn, as I said from the beginning as a caveat, LinkedIn is a tool. So, so don't stress over it. I mean, if people want to to endorse some of your skills, great. And I think they will do it once you have a network. They will be happy to endorse you on coaching or change. I mean, as if I look at mine, or on whatever your skill is, it doesn't really require a lot of work from them. You can also ask people to endorse your skills. But make sure that if you ask people to endorse your skills, make sure it's people that know your skills, because otherwise they might feel a bit strange if you ask them to endorse your skills and they don't even know you that well. Or I know I get a bit, I wouldn't feel comfortable recommending someone's skills if I haven't seen them in action, because I think, you're putting yourself out there recommending somebody. So, and again, it's not about the number of people. You can see mine has a few, but again, it's sometimes I see people who have just a complete ocean of recommendations, and that's also for me a bit suspicious. So did this person go and pay people to put a recommendation there or endorsement? So I would just again go with organic. If you put some skills there, people will automatically endorse them if they know you. They'll be happy to do it. I think I see it a bit less now. There was a time maybe a year ago when it was this big hype. Again, people would endorse skills, or you would see that they expected to be endorsed. I think people have calmed down a little bit now. I don't get as many requests as I used to on endorsement in general. So again, don't stress over it. Just have a few things out there, and it's not going to be anyway the most important in my view. So your network is something that's important in your profile. That's what's going to trigger more activity. So if right now you have a profile with 2 people on there, probably it's a bit difficult to make anything out of it. A social media becomes very useful once you have a little bit of a crowd there. So it's a little bit like a party. If you're 2 people, probably you look at each other in the eye and nothing happens. If you start having 5, 10, 20, then it becomes a bit more interesting. So the recommendation, if you're on your very early steps on LinkedIn, is to actually go on there and add people you've met from school, from your previous experiences. Probably more people now are on LinkedIn, so you can find them easier. Also search for profiles, people that you would like to have in your network. The first thing to do is to actually look at your business cards on paper and to add people on LinkedIn. It's easier to track because then everything gets updated automatically. If you keep the business card on paper, there's a chance that now 6 months, a year later, it becomes obsolete. So I would really regroup all my contacts under LinkedIn now. Think about all the contacts you have from everywhere across the board. And even if they're not connected really to your current job search, let's say it's someone that works, I don't know, in a store, or it's your spa, or it's your hairdresser or wherever. I mean, I'm exaggerating, but any person that that's working out there that could have connections, just make sure that you add them on LinkedIn. They will be a resource for you at some point, or at least that's the way to look at it. So having more people, you also get access to their network. So it's basically bringing more flow into your profile. And I think people underestimate this part a little bit. I would be more concerned about growing my network than having recommendations, because once you have an active network, that's when you start also getting more opportunities in terms of which companies are hiring, what companies are doing, because people will publish, so you get information. So that's all for me very relevant to a job seeker. It's to have to develop a good network on LinkedIn and to observe what the network is doing. That gives you the temperature also on the market. Who's doing what? I get a lot of job adverts on LinkedIn. Of course, I have recruiters in my network, so they post the job adverts on LinkedIn. That gives you an information on what kind of positions are being hiring at the moment, what type of companies are hiring, what type of skills are actually required. I see people a bit too focused on their profile. That's my experience, than on what the market is looking for. And that's something really that I'm trying to bridge that gap. When I do a skills assessment with someone, I've brought that into my practice, is to take into account your skills, but also the skills of the market, the skills the market needs, sorry. And basically try to find a common ground there. So it's not just about you and what you know how to do, it's about what the market is looking for. So by having posts from your network about you know, market right now hires a lot of that. Well, are you making green t-shirt? Are you the person making green t-shirt? That's what the market wants. And that triggers the question of, do I need to train myself in something new or update my training a little bit? This is going to help you definitely, as opposed to trying to push your profile to recruiters that may not interest them. So that's a different way of looking for a job. So talking about jobs, it's the next section of the profile. You will be able to find jobs there on LinkedIn that are presented to you automatically. So for example, here in my profile, I get jobs because I have my whole career in human resources. I get a lot of HR jobs that are fed because it's algorithm. So if you have a career in something, that's where they push some jobs to you. So that's why the writing of the experiences, if you're looking for work, is important, because if you posted all your experiences, let's say in supply chain, and now you're looking for a marketing job, you're always going to be fed supply chain jobs based on algorithm. So that's a problem. So make sure that you have the type of experiences that's going to bring you the type of jobs you want. That said, it's only one aspect. You can also look for jobs yourself in the tool. So you have a search button on the top under all here with a little magnet. So you can definitely find the jobs you want and decide what you want to look for. So under that button with the magnet, you can find people, jobs, companies, groups. That's your search engine. And this is why I would spend some time if you're building up your profile, because that's where you can find what's going on. So under the jobs, to take the jobs as an example, you can really choose and narrow down what you're looking for. But I always advise job seekers to go broad. And the reason why I want them to go broad is because it's information. So if you find the job of your dreams halfway across Switzerland, and you're going to say, well, it's not interesting because I want to stay in Geneva, it's still interesting because it's information. You see what companies are doing. You can get a Skype interview and be able to ask more questions about what the company is doing, and this can lead to other things. And I always say, you never know. You never know what's happening. A job application process takes a long time. Maybe by the time you have the phone interview, something changed in your life where now you're available to move. Maybe you've talked with a partner and you decided to move. So I wouldn't rush into elimination too quickly. The idea is to get interviews. It's also training for yourself, your interviewing skills. So the idea is to get some replies, get some recruiters to be interested in you and also give you feedback. Because even if you have a Skype interview halfway across Switzerland, it's still someone you can ask questions to position yourself better on the Swiss market. I take the example of the Swiss market, which I assume most of you are interested in. So again, keep it broad. Look at really in Switzerland what's going on in general, which jobs are posted. Also, you can see here the name of the companies. Typically now what companies do is they post all their jobs on LinkedIn. So you can see who has the most jobs, and basically that gives you an idea on who's recruiting. So, so it gives you an idea on who's recruiting, what type of skills they're looking for. Don't apply to every job opening with one company, because that will send a signal that you're not positioned well or you're not really sure what you want to do, which is not really a good sign. So just take that as research for the moment. Research companies, research job openings, and position yourself with what fits with your resume. So, so that's a huge source. Then you can apply, of course, on LinkedIn. Everything is automated. You can see how you compare with other applicants. You can see, it gives you a lot of data, basically. So it's a little bit of a improved job board. So on a job board, once you send the resume, that's it. You don't really know what's happening. With LinkedIn, you can still view how many people applied. That gives you an idea of your competition. Sometimes you can also see the name of the recruiter, because the person who posted the job appears on the page. So that gives you also the name of the person you can follow up with later. So all that is really information for the job seeker to be more effective in the job search. So LinkedIn, that's why I say LinkedIn is really a job search partner, because it gives you so much information that it really makes your job search a lot smoother. And then the tool can get very sophisticated. So if you're looking for people, for example, you can do a lot of advanced searches and really narrow down with the years of experience, with the function, etc., etc. I don't think it's for everybody, that advanced search. Again, I think there's different types of people out there. You have the geek types that really like to go into the database and search for things. And then you have people that are not so excited about it and they just won't do it. So I don't want to get too much in detail anyways. I think the idea is just to show you what's out there and you can decide how much involvement is right for you. I think there's some basics you can do, and that's what I'm trying to show today. If you want to really get into the tool, you can do that if you really feel that it's something that you do naturally. But I always also look at the job seeker as where in the job search strategy, where are you the most efficient? So if you are you someone who can talk easier face to face with people? Are you someone that's actually better at just applying on job boards but not get too much into information? So basically, it has to be your style. So I don't want to say do a profile exactly like this and it's the same for everybody, because it's not the case. It has to represent how you work. And I'll give you an example. You're not going to work the same way on LinkedIn if you're a branding or marketing specialist as if you're an internal auditor. Obviously, if I'm a recruiter, I'm expecting the branding specialist to have articles, to be completely 100% knowledgeable on the tool. If you're an internal auditor, maybe having just a photo with a title and contact details would be enough. So it's just a bit different on how you brand yourself as well. The other thing you have on the tool is interests. So that comes after the network and job search. Interest is really what can help build up your profile. So you can be interested in companies that you want to follow, groups. So in a way, it's a little bit like Facebook, where you like pages, for example, and then you get feeds on this page. So here it's the same idea, is that you would get a feed with company updates. So once you've identified, maybe in Geneva, you're interested in international organizations like the UN or the Red Cross or whatever, if you actually went and liked their page or joined or what have you, then you get the automated update and you can see what's going on and see if they're recruiting. They're recruiting, obviously. The other thing you have is groups. Groups you can join. SlideShare gives you also information on, it's basically slides that people have put out there for free. And finally, learning. So just a word on SlideShare. So SlideShare is basically where you would get information that people put out for free, and then you can just go ahead and share it. So that's something that's quite relevant for a job seeker. So before I move to the next part, which is about engaging more with companies and individuals, I'm just going to look at the screen to see if you have any questions. So any questions up to date on this part, on the first part? So I have a question that I think could be something you have in your head or that could be relevant to most of you. I changed careers. So let's say you're someone who changed careers or had multiple jobs in multiple areas. What do I put under experiences? So I touched a little bit on that under the first section. So my recommendation when you're changing careers or you've had a ad hoc type of resume is really to work a lot on your branding. So I go through the steps with individuals when I do the career assessment, because that's when you would work on what are your strengths, what do you want to do nowadays, and we go step by step on those strengths, and we have personality tests, etc. So for me, there's two things. Either you've done this work before in your career and you understand what you're about, but you just need to make it, to draft it basically and make it come out, or you haven't done it. If you haven't done it, it's going to be a bit more difficult because you won't necessarily know what type of words to use or what type of experiences should be bigger than others. If you have done the work, for example, now you're all about, let's say you're a finance forecasting specialist, that's exactly what you want, and you've spent the time to think about it. So anything you've done that are not linked to that, let's say you worked in the past in a company, you were doing supply chain or you were doing assistant work or what have you, this will become less important experiences, and you would just put it more as a one-liner and not get into details. Whereas anything linked to those finance experiences or forecasting experiences, you want to bring out more. So it's about really deciding, it's like when you're writing, basically, you want to decide what you're going to put in that's very good for you and what's less important, and make the most out of that. So, so yeah, that's how you would do it. But I think really skills assessment helps in terms, and that's why I see that people haven't done so much of it. It's really assessing what you're good at, what are your strengths, what should be your next step in your career, what should be the next job. Because we do spend a lot of time sometimes just posting things and thinking, okay, I just need a job, what's available on the market, and I'll just post for that, which might work. You might get something, but then in 2 years or 1 year, you'll be in the same place again, saying, yeah, it's not really working for me. Now what's the next job, etc., etc. So at some point, you need to take that step back and say, you know, what am I about? What are my values? What am I good at? And what do I want on this market? So that was just, I think, something that people might be curious about. So now I'll go and talk about the other part of the presentation. So on part number 2 is how to start engaging with companies and individuals. And I think that's really where you can make the most out of any social media. It's not about just posting a profile. I think anyone with a little bit of know-how in the internet can do that, but it's really about how you engage with people, and that becomes the tricky part. So how, you know, you follow companies, you join groups, you start discussions. These are the kind of activities that you can do. So going back on my profile as the sample profile to help you understand the tool. So what you can do with LinkedIn is really share in 3 different ways. You can share an update, a little bit like Facebook. Today I've done this, etc. I was at this conference. I think sharing updates is a little bit more complicated when you're a job seeker, because the things, the activities that you're doing in your day might not be the same as if you're a company, for example, and you actually share, you know, events that maybe you belong to, you intervened in, etc. So it's a bit more tricky. Upload a photo. That's usually useful when you want to show a photo of something that, let's say you went to an event and there was something interesting to photograph, and you post that up. And then finally, writing an article. This is where you would post your articles. Again, you don't need anything else than just putting text and a photo, and that's it. Your article is published. So, so on writing an article, again, it depends on what type of job you're searching. Anything that's linked to leadership, communication, management, I think it's good to write articles, because you can really show how you deliver on those different things. If you're actually someone, as I give my example of audit or anything that's a little bit touchy, or maybe something in legal that's a little bit touchy as well, maybe you're not going to be the type of person that publishes a lot. That's not really your DNA, just to give you a little bit of examples. And sharing updates, it's really up to you what you think is relevant. If you went to a great conference where you learned a lot of things, or you attended a training that was fantastic, I think just saying, hey, I went to this training, here's the link. First of all, it's very nice for the person who did it. And second of all, it's also showing that you're an active job seeker. You're not just waiting for a company to call you, but you're actually improving your skills. You're going to events, you're attending training. That's a good sign for the recruiter, you're active. So this is something that you can post on there. What you will see, what I have here is basically what you have on your screen when you're on LinkedIn. So you see you have your name that appears here, the header, recent activity will show you what you've posted if you click on there. The number of people that view your profile, that's important for you to see how many people go on your profile. And finally, the views on anything that you post. Let's say you post an article, gives you an idea also of what's engaging people. So I use statistics, well, I'm on Facebook as well, so I use statistics to see what people like, what they're interested in. So as a job seeker, you can see also what kind of information people like. There's basically 2 things that people like as of today. It's video content and photos. So I think photos is a little bit easier because you can find them on free libraries and it's easy to add them to your feed. For videos, it takes a little bit more. Well, first of all, you have to feel comfortable being on video. You need to have something to say, obviously, so it gets a little bit trickier for a job seeker. So that's why for this type of purpose, which is to increase your chances to be seen by a recruiter, I'm not going to get so much into videos. But I think posting photos shows also that you're maybe you're putting a quote out, something inspirational, or maybe again, as I say, example, you shared an interesting event you went to. This is good, I think, for basic communication on LinkedIn as a job seeker. I think that will already improve how much visibility that you get. But again, this will only work if you have enough people in your circle. So if you only have 2 people, even if you post a lot, probably nothing will happen. So that's why you need to increase your network. So adding news on LinkedIn, how do you choose what's interesting, what's not interesting? It's really about the topics that you pick for your profile and link to your career. So if you're in finance, maybe some new laws that came up in finance or some new tool that's being released. There's always improvements in any type of career, any type of function. I think there's always news. So make sure that you publish something that's relevant to your content, obviously, and to your profile. You can add skills and recommendations from colleagues. That's also bringing some more depth to your profile, and add all your business contacts. As I said earlier, this is going to be a way to start having people on your profile or in your network. So if you do these 3 things, in terms of activity on LinkedIn, I think you already will have some kind of results. You will already have some activity. I would be patient with results because social media takes a long time. People take a long time to see what you're about, what you're doing. And again, you have to remember that for most people, unless you're the expert of social media, it's still work in progress, even for the tool itself. Because LinkedIn, if you start looking at LinkedIn, just like any other tool, there's always new features, new buttons. So the tool is progressing as we speak, and you're progressing also. So everyone is learning, and no one really has all the answers. So I think social media is really this space where people post information, they engage with people, and then there's always new buttons and new features. It's really work in progress. So I go about it as looking at something that you don't necessarily know all the answers, but you're learning as you go, but you don't have so much expectations. I think it's a little bit different than when you apply for a job, for example. You expect to get feedback, either yes or no. When you're on a tool, on social media tool, when you post information, the best thing is not to expect that this or that will happen. Same thing when you contact people. Everyone is learning. Some people are not comfortable with replying necessarily. They don't know if they want to accept you to their network. Some people are very cautious about that and very picky also about who they accept to their contacts. There's still a lot of nervousness around social media in general. So it's new. It's still fairly new compared to other types of communications like phone or email. So it's new, so people are very cautious. They don't necessarily know how to communicate on social media. They don't necessarily know also the impact. I remember when I was doing workshops, a lot of people from the old school were very worried about posting any kind of information online and very nervous about it, like anything else that you don't know. You're just very nervous. So don't expect necessarily too much out of people. Don't be disappointed if they don't reply to you or they're not accepting you to their network. You just learn as you go as well, and you try to make the most out of it. So SlideShare, I was talking about. SlideShare is interesting. SlideShare is basically a website where people decide to share their slides with the world. So it's very generous of them. I use SlideShare when I do research as well. I find that there's already a lot of research on different topics, so I don't want to reinvent the wheel necessarily. So I think it's a great place to learn in general while you're looking for work, to get some updates on your function. So if you work in very dynamic, especially type of fields, this is where you can find some very good presentations that people have written for you. So that can be used for your own knowledge. It can be used also for you if you're going to create content, that you see already what content exists and what you could add to it. So I find SlideShare is very good. There's lots of places where you can find content nowadays. But basically what SlideShare is doing with LinkedIn is that you can go to the feed by clicking on SlideShare under interests, and you can see basically what kind of PowerPoints are interesting for you, and just click on share here with the little arrow there, and it goes into your feed. So it's a very nice and easy way for a job seeker to be active without doing too much, actually, because all you do is look at the PowerPoint and click on share, and it will be shared with your network. So it shows you're active. It shows also what topics are of interest to you. Most people don't necessarily have the time to actually read on their favorite topics and read the feed of news. So when they go on LinkedIn and they see that you've shared this and it's something that they would be very happy to read, you've basically done them a favor already. So sharing PowerPoints, I find, is very nice as well. And LinkedIn gives you the way to do this very easily in a few clicks. So SlideShare under interest, very easy way to get some visibility. So what I want to do now that I've talked about interests and how to join groups, what I would really encourage you to do now is to think about what strategy you're going to use that's going to work for you. So to do this, basically, I want to come back to the face-to-face to talk about the strategy. So basically, the first thing to understand is really what you're about. What's your DNA about? When you create your profile on LinkedIn, the important thing is that when I go and I look at you as a recruiter, I want to understand what you're looking for. I don't want to have to look for it. So you have to really build your branding where you say, okay, this is what I'm about. This is what's important to me in this day and age. And this is what I want to communicate to the world. So the first step in your strategy is really to assess where you stand and what you're looking for. The second thing you can do that will help you with your profile, with your branding, with your engagement, is to look at what other people in your field are doing. So if you're in marketing in Geneva, for example, or in finance, well, just check out other financial professionals or marketing professionals, see what they're doing, how they're, what kind of things they're publishing. That gives you an idea. And of course, on LinkedIn, you can search for people, or you can look at functions and have everyone in finance in Geneva and see who you think is branding themselves very well. So that gives you an idea what kind of photos are they using for background, for their own photo. It's benchmarking, basically. So that gives you a good stand of what you should be doing as a job seeker. The other thing to help you with your profile is to read job descriptions. So that should be part of your strategy as well, is to read all the job descriptions in the function that you pursue and to try to see what's coming back all the time. So when you've read, using the example of finance or forecasting, you've read all the job descriptions on forecasting, and you understand now that these 3 skills are really requested across the board. That's what you will either need to improve, or if you have them, they need to come up very high on your profile so that recruiters can pick them up quickly. So it's really a question of, when you think about looking for a job, it's not really rocket science. It's really understanding what the need is out there and how you fit into that need. And some people are better than others, obviously. That's why when we say, well, this person is a good marketer or a good salesperson, usually these people that are very good at that are people that understand needs very fast, and they understand how they plug into that need very fast as well. And of course, if you do that well, you can not only get a job anywhere, but you can have your own company and do very well as well. So that's a key thing to do when you're creating your profile. The other thing you need to start doing is to show your expertise in something. So it's not just about what you've done, what your career background is. Now people are looking for skills validation. So it's really showing your expertise in something. The great thing about LinkedIn is that you can do more than a resume. On a resume, it's just experiences, but on LinkedIn, you can add photos, you can add SlideShare, you can add your own PowerPoint, videos, etc. So there's no reason why you can't make yourself more lively on LinkedIn, as opposed to a resume that's a bit dry. And anyway, now I think companies are using resumes less and less. Everything happens via online profiles anyway. All the exchanges happen online. So I think companies are also trying to make their processes a bit smoother, as opposed to having to deal with paper. they automate it with tools like LinkedIn. It's a big support for them, or via a recruitment firm that will deal with the paper resumes. So so think about that as well, how you can make your profile more lively on LinkedIn. Research your network on LinkedIn. So make sure that you've done some research on who you should be adding to LinkedIn. Who are the profiles that you should have on there that you've met, either people you've met in the past, people from previous companies, people you met recently. So there's a whole thing about, when we talk about network, there's really something about how you manage the whole process. Because I think most people do meet actually a lot of individuals, and they do get business cards at some point, but it's what you do with them. I think when you meet someone, for example, let's say you put the business card in your purse, what do you do afterwards? You know, how do you engage that person? So I think now getting into the habit of, I met this person, I got the card, now I'm going to add them on LinkedIn, should be really the process that will also grow your network. I was saying that a bit earlier, but look at which posts that you've published get the most views. That gives you an idea also on how to engage your network. If you post things that don't get any views, that means you're off somewhere. You're not understanding what your network is looking for, or what value you could bring to them. Remembering that if you expect someone to provide you some type of information at some point, it's thinking really about, and that's my next point, is really thinking about how you serve them, how you cater to them in terms of helping them with their careers. So there's nothing better than actually posting something that you know is of value, and having in mind who is involved in your network. So let's say you have previous colleagues that are in marketing or in finance. What kind of information would really help them in their job right now and would really help them grow? So if you've done this, they'll be happy to see your information, and then at some point they'll think about you and they'll say, oh, maybe I contact this person because I've been reading so many interesting posts on this person, and they're showing they're an expert and they're qualified, and you know what, I have a post now that's opened in my company, and I think this individual on LinkedIn would be great for it. So that's the idea, is that you want people to come to that conclusion on their own, that you're the right person that should be working with them or in their company. But rather than try to pursue them, and I talk a lot about in my different webinars or any presentation I make about the push and pull in marketing, where push is really what used to be in the old days, you know, I have these skills or this product and I want to push it to people and hope they buy it. And that's what commercials did on television or boards that you would see, you know, in the street. Well, now we're more about, I buy this product because they do something that I really like, and therefore I want to purchase from them. So when you're a job seeker, you know, think about how you could make yourself be the type of person that people would want to engage with or would be interested in knowing. So, so don't think necessarily about, I want to talk to the CEO of this company or the HR person of this company, but it's more about, I'm doing what I enjoy and I'm posting things that I think are relevant to me, and that will trigger the person that I want to respond to that. If you understand your audience very well, which means you need to understand your audience. Recommendations, I would keep it light, you know, ask a few people in your circle that you're comfortable with, that also, you know, they will be happy to do recommendation for you. I talked about that in my blog about references, which is a bit similar, is to make sure that people will actually be a plus and not a minus in their reference. And the reason is, some people are happy to be a reference for you or to give you a recommendation, but they're just not the type of person that will either draft it well, or they won't say necessarily the right things. We've all met these really great individuals that are really happy to help, but they're not very, in the way they present themselves or the way they write or the way they talk, they would actually not help you as opposed to help you. They're not very articulate, if you know what I mean. So, so we've all met these individuals and they're great and happy to see them once in a while for coffee or a drink, but they're not necessarily the type of person you want as a reference. And there could be many reasons for that, but people you want as a reference are people that will have credibility and bring credibility to your profile. So people that are serious, people that are articulate, that understand really what you're looking for and can say something that's relevant for your job search. So pick your references or your recommendations very well. The other thing is try to look at your profile on a regular basis, because I have the case when I did workshops with job seekers where they would actually go and post something and then nothing, they wouldn't go back. They just said, oh yeah, I've created my profile and I followed the steps that you gave me and now that's it. And they wonder why they're not getting any activity. So it's, you have to think that it's something that's going to have to be regular. And that's why I say just work with LinkedIn, because if I tell you to be on several social media, you probably lose sight of it and get bored with it. So if you could do LinkedIn well already as a start, as an objective, I think that's a really good first step. So to actually have this tool and understand the basics of it, start growing your network, start engaging with a few people, start posting information. If you can allocate a slot of time for that every week, I would say that's very good. So again, everyone is different. Some people are immediately hooked on social media, and I'm thinking especially younger generation, they're on their phone all day on social media. For some people, it's a little bit of a slower adoption where they don't necessarily either feel comfortable or they're not, it just doesn't appeal to them. You know, I've had people where like, it was like, you know, getting, you know, it was really not interesting for them to be on social media. It was more of a hassle or a task than something fun. So really see how comfortable you are with LinkedIn, how comfortable you are sharing information. Is it a hassle or is it something you actually get pleasure doing? That's very important. If it's a hassle, you know, don't invest too much time on it. You know, your job strategy should be then something different. If it's something you really start enjoying, that will help your job search strategy. But I think we're getting results in some things that we're good at. So if you're not good at social media in general, you just don't get it or you don't find it interesting, it won't bring value to your job search. If it's something you're really interested in and you'd like to get to know more about, then of course you will find results there. So that would be, I think, some things that are interesting for you to know is really understanding what you're about, what you're good at. That's the first step. And social media should really be there to support that. So any questions? I missed the questions on the part on engaging with people, but it's also connecting to the strategy. So if you have any questions, I'm happy to answer. So you click on the Rubik's Cube and I will just be able to view your questions on the chat. So I don't see any questions. I have one that pops up in my head right now about emails. Email is something that you see when you look at a profile, it asks for an email. So that's something you can't really do unless you've paid for the featured or the premium type of thing. So it makes it a little bit more difficult to do. But then let's say you were able to send an email. You have the premium and you're able to send many emails. What do you put on there? That's the next thing. So you have to remember it's a little bit like meeting someone in a room somewhere. It doesn't mean because you're on social media, people should be more informal. And I find that's an issue as well, is that on social media, people think that because it's easier to just send an email than introducing themselves in real life, they're a bit casual about it. And depending on who you're dealing with, it can be okay or not okay. If it's someone that's 19 years old or 20 and used to social media, probably they're very informal about it. If it's someone a bit more senior, like a head of a department, 50 years old for a big company, they may have a different approach. So, so being a little bit more formal, maybe in your presentation, and really reaching out to the person by really saying what you're expecting of them. That's usually what people are wondering. It's, oh, this person is contacting me, what do they want? So being clear about what you're expecting of this person if you contact them. If it's just a connection. One thing I do sometimes is say, I've posted this information, I think you'd be interested in it, can you join my network? You could use that as a way to connect if you want them in your network. So, so things like that, but always make sure you introduce yourself. Hi, I'm so-and-so, this is what I do. And then you find, you know, a few interest points. But I would always approach a contact network as what are you bringing to them rather than what you're asking them. So, so what you're bringing, maybe you've posted something interesting, maybe you have experience in something interesting, and then you can say why you're contacting them. So I'm contacting you because I think you'd be a great resource for me on this topic, etc., etc. So keep the balance between what you're offering and what you're asking so that it's not all about what you can get. That's very important. Also, the other thing important about following companies, there's lots of companies you could follow. It really also depends on your feed, what you want to see there. Some companies you might just be interested in knowing they're out there, but you don't necessarily want their feed all the time. So pick companies that you're really interested in following and where maybe you want to get a job there really seriously, and therefore you want to get their job openings. Because the thing is, the more companies you're following and the more groups, then it might clutter your feed also a little bit. So pick what's relevant to you. Same thing when you join groups. Has to be groups where you think it's relevant to you. I think one of the pitfalls would be to follow too many groups and then to have all this feed that's not really useful for you, and you waste time scrolling through. And so what I do sometimes is that I join groups or follow companies, and if I see at some point it's not really so relevant, I just stop following, because you will see your feed gets busy with lots of information, and sometimes you just want to get what's the most relevant and not necessarily everything that happens in the world. You want to have a bit of a selected view on information. So that will be also the challenge to manage at some point. So I think I covered my presentation part, what I wanted you to know about the creation of the profile, engaging with individuals and companies, and also how you can use this great tool to make yourself more visible and a more desirable type of employee. I'm here to answer any questions that you have later. So if you think about something, you're curious, you can always ask the questions on Meetup or any other platform. I have several. So there were some people, maybe some from Facebook that are connected today. So don't hesitate to ask your question, or maybe once you start creating the profile, you realize, or you've done the things that I've asked you to do or advised you to do, and you think, I'm stuck there. I don't know if it's the right thing for me. Don't hesitate to ask me. So as for the name behind here, just to give a quick header on that. So Pleiad HC was created to help people achieve their career goals faster. My main mission is to give people independence. I want people to have free mind, where they can decide where they want to work or if they want to be solopreneurs, and to really understand what their strengths are and how to build on them. So I do that via one-on-one meetings. And I have a tool online called Online Career Planning that's really geared for job search. So it gives you the whole thing about job search, what you should be doing from branding yourself to getting interviews to securing a job. And what I've been doing lately also is a lot of career assessments for individuals that are at this stage of their career where they enjoyed what they've done before, but it's just not fulfilling them anymore, or they just don't find, either they don't find anything on the market, or it's not fulfilling, or maybe a little bit of both. We go through different stages now in life, and sometimes we want to change careers because we realize this one career I have now is not suiting me anymore. So I do, that's the part that I do, really skills assessment and helping people position themselves properly on the market, getting the job they really want, basically, or the career they really want. So I let you look at this information anyway on my different platforms. So if I don't see any questions on the chat, I will close this webinar. It will be available for replay on my YouTube channel. And feel free to share it also with your network if you find it useful and you know some people that would benefit from it. That would be great. So thank you very much. Have a good lunch if you haven't had lunch yet. And anyway, we stay in touch. Thank you.